All right, so are you ready for some serious behind-the-scenes drama? We're diving into a lawsuit that's rocking Fox Sports.
Yeah, this one's got it all.
It does, and it could actually change the game entirely.
For sure.
So all of this is coming from a single article from SourceName. It alleges some pretty wild misconduct at Fox Sports.
Yeah.
And it involves some really big names.
Huge.
So basically, we have a Fox Sports hairstylist. Her name is Noushin Faraji, and she's suing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and not just Fox, but also Joy Taylor.
Oh, wow. I know her.
Yeah.
From Undisputed, right.
Yeah, exactly. She co-hosts with Skip Bayless.
Right.
And the lawsuit also names Fox executive Charlie Dixon
Okay.
and analyst Emmanuel Acho.
He was on Speak for Yourself for a while.
Exactly, another Fox Sports show.
Yeah, yeah.
So Faraji is basically saying that Fox was a workplace where, like, personal relationships were used for professional gain.
Interesting.
And she says it had devastating consequences.
Wow.
So let's get into the core allegations. Okay, so Faraji claims that Joy Taylor used relationships with both Dixon and Acho to get ahead at Fox Sports.
Okay.
So specifically, the lawsuit alleges that Taylor had an affair with Dixon.
Wow.
Yeah, and that Dixon had control over content decisions at Fox. And she claims that this relationship is how Taylor got her role on Undisputed.
Oh, wow.
Even though Skip Bayless was against it at first.
Really?
Yeah, the lawsuit even describes a dinner where Taylor, like, dressed provocatively.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, it says she was trying to convince Bayless to, like, get on board with her being on the show. But when that didn't work, Dixon allegedly, like, pressured Bayless.
Wow. Pressured him how?
Basically to accept Taylor as a favor.
That sounds so awkward.
It does, right? Like, can you imagine?
I can only imagine.
That must have been tense.
Totally.
Okay, but it gets even crazier.
Oh, no.
So the lawsuit also claims that Taylor's husband at the time found out about the alleged affair with Dixon and divorced her. Oh, my gosh.
And then, get this, her fiancé broke off their engagement after he found out about the relationship with Dixon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So what happened next?
Well, according to the lawsuit, Dixon actually paid for the fiancé's wedding deposits.
He did?
Yeah.
Wow.
In exchange for his silence about the whole thing.
Jeez. So that's a lot of hush money.
It is, right.
Yeah.
So now we get to Emmanuel Acho's part in all this.
Okay.
The lawsuit says that Taylor started dating Acho and that she was hoping he would recommend her for a spot on Speak for Yourself.
Really?
Yeah.
So she was basically trying to jump ship from Undisputed.
Apparently, yeah. And Faraji claims she warned Taylor about being involved with both Dixon and Acho at the same time.
Ah, okay.
Especially because, like, Dixon was so high up at Fox.
Right.
But according to Faraji, Taylor didn't care.
What did she say?
Well, she said that if Dixon tried to force her out of Fox, she would just accuse him of forcing himself on her.
Seriously?
That's a very risky move.
Definitely. So now the big question is, does Faraji have any proof to back up all these claims? We're talking about some really serious accusations.
For sure.
That could ruin careers and reputations.
Yeah.
So what does she need to prove all this?
I mean, to make these allegations stick, she's going to need some hard evidence.
Like what?
We'll think emails, text messages, or witnesses who can back up her story.
Right. So she can't just say, this stuff happened.
Exactly.
She needs to prove that Taylor used these relationships to manipulate situations and get ahead unfairly.
Yeah, and proving intent and manipulation like that can be tricky.
Especially when you're talking about personal relationships in the workplace.
Oh, for sure.
So this is where the legal side of this gets even more interesting. It's not just about gossip and drama. It's about what can be proven in court.
Right.
And the legal system requires a lot of evidence to support these kinds of claims.
Like building a house, you know.
A house.
Yeah, you need strong bricks of evidence to build a solid case.
I like that analogy.
Thanks.
So what kind of bricks would Faraji need?
Well, emails and text messages would be huge.
Of course.
Like if she had messages showing Dixon offering Taylor a spot on Undisputed in exchange for, you know, a relationship.
Okay. Yeah, that would be pretty damning.
Absolutely.
But what if they never put anything in writing?
Well, then things get a lot harder.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, what if those conversations happened face-to-face or, you know, through some secret messaging app?
That's where witness testimonies become super important.
Like other people who saw them together or heard them talking?
Exactly. If someone saw them being inappropriate or heard them making these deals, that could help her case.
So she needs to find those people and convince them to talk.
Right, and that's not always easy.
Why not?
Well, people can be afraid to speak up against powerful people like Dixon.
Because they're afraid of losing their job or something?
Exactly. Nobody wants to be seen as a troublemaker.
That's true.
Yeah.
And that brings us to a bigger issue here, which is the power dynamics you see in workplaces, especially in fields like media.
Oh, yeah, it's everywhere.
And especially in male-dominated fields like sports.
Totally. When you have someone like Dixon in a position of authority, it can create a real imbalance.
And that can make people feel pressured to do things they don't want to do.
Absolutely, even if it makes them uncomfortable.
And that kind of environment can lead to exploitation.
And abuse of power.
So this case isn't just about a few people behaving badly.
Right.
It's about a bigger problem that goes way beyond Fox Sports.
It's about the system itself.
Exactly. And it's making people think about how we can make workplaces safer.
For everyone.
So everyone feels comfortable speaking up if something's wrong.
And so we can hold the people in power accountable for their actions.
This is such a complicated story. What really stands out to you so far?
Well, it's fascinating to me how this one lawsuit is having such a ripple effect.
You mean like beyond Fox Sports?
Exactly. It's making people think about the whole sports media industry.
And how it operates.
Yeah, and it's bringing up all these uncomfortable truths about power and ambition and what people are willing to do to succeed.
It's like a wake-up call.
Definitely. And it's a reminder that these issues aren't just happening in Hollywood or in sports.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, in all kinds of workplaces.
So it's really making people think about their own values and how they behave at work.
And it's making people question what they're willing to do for success.
Like, would you compromise your integrity just to get ahead?
It's a tough question.
Yeah.
And I think this case is really making people think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's especially interesting to think about this case in terms of what it means for women in sports media.
Because it's such a male-dominated field.
Exactly.
So this case, even if the allegations aren't true, makes you wonder about the challenges women face in these kinds of environments.
Absolutely.
Like historically, it's been a boys' club, and women have had to fight harder for recognition and opportunities.
Yeah, and this case brings up the question of whether some women might feel pressured to use their personal relationship.
Oh, to get ahead.
Yeah.
Especially when they're trying to break into those established networks.
That's a really good point.
It's like, does the pressure to succeed push women to make choices that maybe they wouldn't otherwise make?
And it forces us to examine those pressures and expectations on women and whether they can lead to, like, ethically questionable choices.
And we have to acknowledge that, look, ambitious people, no matter who they are, can be tempted to cut corners or compromise their values to get what they want.
Right.
But it does feel like this case might be exposing a particularly difficult dynamic for women in sports media.
And it's important to remember that ambition isn't a bad thing in itself.
Of course not.
It's a powerful force.
It can lead to great things.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but it's about how you use it and where you draw the line.
Exactly.
And that's where ethics come into play.
Right.
If these allegations are true, it seems like the desire for success might have come at a really high price.
Yeah.
You know, relationships are damaged.
Reputation's on the line.
And who knows how much collateral damage.
Totally.
So let's just say for a second that Faraji can prove her claims. What are the legal consequences for the people involved?
Well, for Taylor, Dixon, and Osho,
the
consequences could be pretty serious.
Like what?
They could face lawsuits and, career setbacks.
For sure.
And their reputations would definitely take a hit.
Yeah. And what about Fox as a company?
Right.
Could they be held liable for what their employees allegedly did?
Well, that's a tough one.
Because, legally, are they responsible?
It depends. Did Fox know about this alleged misconduct? And if they did they try to do anything about it?
So if they knew and didn't do anything, then they could be in trouble.
Potentially, yeah.
So it's not just about the individuals.
Right.
It's about the whole organization.
Yeah. This case highlights how important it is for companies to create a work environment where people feel safe.
Safe to do what?
Safe to report misconduct.
Oh, okay.
Without fear of retaliation.
And it makes you think about why someone like Faraji would wait so long to come forward.
Right. What kept her silent?
And what stops other people from speaking up when they see something wrong?
Well, there are lots of reasons why people might not report misconduct.
Yeah, like what?
I mean, they might be afraid of losing their job,
That's true.
or they might be worried about what other people will think of them.
Yeah, the reputation.
Exactly.
Or maybe they don't think anyone will believe them.
And sometimes they're afraid of the people they'd be reporting.
Especially if those people are powerful.
Yeah,
That's a tough situation.
it is.
Because you want to encourage people to speak up, but you also have to understand why they might be hesitant.
Exactly. It's a delicate balance.
And it shows how important it is for companies to have clear ways for people to report misconduct.
Right.
And to support people who do come forward.
And to create a culture where speaking up is encouraged.
And protected.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, it's about creating a workplace where everyone feels safe and valued.
Absolutely.
No matter their position or who they're friends with.
A healthy workplace is built on trust and respect.
And accountability.
Yeah.
And that takes effort from both the individuals and the organization.
Oh, yeah.
This whole thing has so many different angles. What part of it is the most interesting to you?
Well, I think the most fascinating thing is how this case is making people think about the big picture.
You mean like beyond just the people involved?
Right. It's making people think about their own values and their own behavior at work.
And what they're willing to do to get ahead.
Exactly.
And it's making people question what success really means.
Like, is it worth sacrificing your integrity?
That's a big question.
It is.
And I think this case is forcing people to confront that question.
Yeah. It's definitely a wake-up call.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really feels like a wake-up call for any company where people might be tempted to abuse their power.
For sure.
It reminds us that a company's culture can either make people behave ethically,
Right.
or it can create a situation where people feel like they have to compromise their values to get ahead.
And as we talked about, the consequences can be huge. It can hurt the people involved, obviously, but it can also damage the whole organization and even the industry.
Yeah, this case could really change how things work in sports media.
How so?
Well, it's forcing networks and executives to look at their own practices.
You mean like how they do things?
Exactly. And it's pushing them to be more transparent and accountable.
It's not enough to just talk about being ethical.
No, they need to actually make changes.
Like what kind of changes?
Well, they need to have clear rules about reporting misconduct.
Right.
And they need to protect people who speak up.
So they don't get punished for doing the right thing.
Exactly. And they need to create a workplace where everyone feels safe and respected.
Because that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
Creating a work environment that's good for everyone.
And when you have that, everyone benefits.
How so?
Well, people trust each other more.
Okay.
Morale is higher.
Mm-hmm.
And the organization is more successful in the long run.
So it's really about creating a win-win situation.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into this story, what are your final thoughts?
Well, to me, this case really highlights the importance of personal responsibility.
What do you mean?
I mean, we all have a role to play in making the world a better place.
Both in our personal lives and at work.
Yeah, exactly. And this case is a reminder that we need to speak up when we see something wrong.
We can't just stay silent.
Right. We need to challenge the status quo and demand better.
From ourselves and from the organizations we're a part of.
This story is far from over.
Definitely still developing.
But it's clear that it's sparked an important conversation.
And that conversation needs to continue.
Absolutely.
So what do you think will happen next?
Well, we'll have to wait and see how the legal case plays out.
You're right.
But more importantly, I hope this deep dive has made people think about these issues.
And maybe even have some tough conversations of their own.
Exactly. Let's keep questioning, keep challenging, and keep pushing for a better future.
I love that. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We really appreciate you listening and being a part of this conversation. We'll be back soon with more insightful discussions, so stay tuned.